All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something that's really fundamental to economics. And it helps us understand these trade-offs that we face, and we face them constantly, whether we're thinking on like a big national scale or even just in our own personal lives.
That's right, yeah. And the idea we're talking about is called the production possibility curve, or PPC. And you've given us some material on it. And what we're going to try to do is really just extract what's most important for you to understand about this concept.
Okay, yeah, and speaking of that term PPC, I noticed in the material it also referred to a production possibility frontier, or PPF. Are those basically the same idea? Can we use them interchangeably here?
Yeah, you can absolutely. They really are just different labels for the same concept, so you can use either one here.
So what is this thing then? What is this a graph of or a curve of?
Basically, you can think of it as like this visual guide that helps us understand scarcity, right?
Right.
And so it shows us like the maximum combinations of two goods that a country can produce at a given moment in time. So, given their current resources, their technology, all of that.
So it's like the absolute limit of what's possible right now with what we have.
Exactly. That outer edge, that frontier. That's what we're talking about here.
Okay, cool. And so on this graph then, what does it mean like if a production point lands on the curve versus inside or outside of it?
All right. So if a point is right on the PPC, that means that the country is using all of its resources efficiently, and they're at the maximum possible output for both of those goods.
Gotcha.
Now, if the point is inside the curve,
Yeah.
that actually signals that there are some unused resources or maybe some inefficiencies in the economy, right? So it's like there's potential there that's waiting to be unlocked. And if we were able to move closer to that frontier, that would be an example of what we call actual economic growth. Now, a point that's outside the PPC, that's basically telling us that that combination of goods is unattainable right now, given the current resources and technology.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's say we decide to produce more of one good, and so that means we have to produce less of the other. We move along this curve. That sounds a lot like this concept of opportunity cost.
Yeah, it does. And moving along that PPC, that really perfectly illustrates the concept of opportunity cost, right? Because to get more of one thing, you inherently have to give up some of the other. And that's what opportunity cost is. It's the value of what you have to sacrifice the next best alternative.
Okay, all right. Now I'm curious about the shape of this curve. I saw it described as being concave, like kind of bowed outwards typically, but then also potentially a straight line. So why is there this difference in shape?
So the typical concave shape, it actually tells us something really important about how economies work, and that's that resources aren't perfectly adaptable, from one thing to another.
Right.
So like imagine trying to shift all farmers to become software engineers. Initially, maybe some of them could make that switch relatively well, but then as you try to move those who have very specific skills in agriculture, well, the output in software development might increase at a slower and slower rate.
Yeah.
So you're getting less and less additional software for each farmer that you move.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what creates this bowed out shape, this increasing opportunity cost. Now, a straight line PPC, that would imply constant opportunity costs.
Yeah.
Which means that resources are equally suited to produce either good.
Yeah.
And as a much less common scenario.
Okay. I see. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So the curve then kind of shows us where we are right now, the limit. But obviously, the economy can change. Things can change. So what causes these shifts to the PPC, either to the right or to the left?
Yeah. So shifts in the PPC represent changes in the economy's overall productive capacity.
Yeah.
So if the curve shifts outward to the right, that signals potential economic growth, meaning the economy can now produce more. And that could be due to things like new resources being discovered or a growing workforce or technological advancements that increase efficiency. And then on the flip side, a leftward shift means a decrease in productive capacity.
Right.
And that could happen because of things like a natural disaster or a decrease in available resources.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So for you listening to this, this isn't just some abstract theory. I think understanding this PPC framework can really help you visualize these trade-offs that we all face in our own lives. So whether it's deciding how to spend your time or, if you're a business thinking about how to allocate your resources, you're always making choices that involve opportunity costs. And the PPC, it's just like a simple but powerful reminder that, every path taken means another path not taken.
It is. And it really underscores this fundamental truth that resources are limited and choices have consequences, and it's always a balancing act.
Right. Yeah. So as you go about your day, consider the production possibilities in your own life and your work. What are the two key things that you're trying to maximize? What are your limitations? What's your personal PPC? And then what factors could actually expand those possibilities for you? And I think using this framework can really encourage us to think more deeply about efficiency and what we're giving up and, how we can potentially grow.
I think that's a great takeaway.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
I'll catch you next time.
Sounds good.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.